So Ariana would like to introduce herself before I speak. If
You
guys
do
can
it
see
first.
Good.
Hi, my name is Ariana and I have sickle cell. My lawyer is Tara over there. And I want her to help more people like me.
So like she said, this is Ariana. She's my 8-year-old daughter who suffers from sickle cell disease. My name is Danielle Flint. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I am a former client. You know, not too long ago was a client, so several months ago became former client of Tara and the Children's Disability Project. So first, I'd like to share that public speaking is not my greatest skill, and talking about this time in my life, it is very difficult for me. So you may see that as I go through this journey with you and relive it, because it was some really dark times for us, for Ariana and for myself. However, it's a journey that I think should be shared with anyone that can help another family like ours move forward and succeed the way we were able to with such support from this project. So like I mentioned, my daughter Ariana was born with sickle cell disease, which is an inherited blood disorder that causes the red blood cells to be misshaped. What happens is that the blood flow isn't happening correctly, and oxygen is being trapped in the veins, and it's not allowing to get to the main organs, which can cause stroke, heart attacks, and several pain crises and other complications. As an infant, she was on daily antibiotics because her spleen does not work, which is part of the sickle cell, and we had to learn a lot. We had about a month or so to learn to become hematologists right off the bat. With caring for her as an infant, she was on the antibiotics, but she also needed to avoid extreme temperatures. And any sign of fever, which meant there was an infection in the body, she needed to be admitted right away and visit an emergency room, which meant they had within an hour to run a bunch of blood work that was done through the spine. So it was a lot to see your child go through this and just feel helpless to not be able to do much and just wait on test results that could take hours or have errors to kind of find out what was going on with her. As she became older, as a toddler, things changed. The list grew longer of her complications. Because of the sickle cell, she had a lot of fluid and blood trapped in different parts of her body. In her ears, it caused her to not hear well, so she had a speech delay. In her tonsils and adenoids, they retained a lot of blood, and she would have apnea, so she would stop breathing in the middle of the night, which was scary, to say the least, but with a child which already has oxygen issues, it's very life-threatening. Now Ariana's school age, so she is able to hydrate herself and work at her pace and do gym and everything as she's able to do it. But the treatment plan doesn't change that much. Unfortunately, there is no cure for sickle cell. We are hoping to see the day that happens. But right now, what we do is we manage her pain with morphine, with albuterol for her breathing, and whatever is affected in her body, we just see that specialist, and they help us kind of see through that crisis. So, what you guys want to know is how did we become part of this project? When Ariana was 5 months old, I was terminated from my job. I was there for 3 years, and they couldn't accommodate anymore me missing work to attend to her multiple surgeries and her many hospital visits. So at that time, though I was encouraged before by our medical social worker to apply, I applied for Social Security. And I was denied 2 times. And that's when I reached out to the Children's Disability Law Project, which was back in 2009. They took on my case. It took about a year to see the first ALJ, and at that time, we were denied, and that was in 2010. We appealed and went up before a same judge, different medical expert, and we were denied again. So the process takes years and years, and you're waiting, and the illness doesn't stop for this application to get seen by a judge. And we just kept fighting while Tara fought for us on the legal side. And in 2015, we were able to win our case, which was a huge accomplishment for us. And, although the medical challenges in the 7-year battle with Social Security Administration sounds well summarized, there was a lot of pain and grief in times of despair for us. And I'm not really religious, but I am very spiritual, and faith that my child would outlive me and have the childhood that I dreamed for her to have was my driving force. Sorry. And I knew she was sick, and I knew she was disabled, but my heart focused on her abilities versus her disabilities, which made this process that much more harder for me to do on my own. I felt in this tug of war that I was caught in between the chief of hematology, who was her treating source, that was telling me, your child is disabled. These are the things we need to do to keep your child alive and to give her, quality of life. And then I sat before a medical expert who was telling me otherwise, who would make me feel like, I must be exaggerating or I must be going crazy because she's fine and she'll be fine and there's nothing, she doesn't need any of these benefits. And I have to say, the first ALJ denial, I looked Tara in the face and I told her, I said, I don't have any more fight left in me. I've had to learn to be a social worker, which I put myself through social work school so I could be the best advocate for her that I could be. And I had to be a hematologist. There was no way I was going to be able to be an attorney too at this time. So, and I had a foot out the door, and that's not me. And Tara turned to me that day, and I will never forget. And she told me, you focus on your daughter and let me work on the legal stuff. I have this for you. And we will make sure that she's going to get what she deserves and she's entitled to, despite how many years it takes. And I believed her partially because I know funding as a social worker is always an issue. I know so many hands have touched her case that I was worried that after so many years, eventually they'll turn to me and say, we don't have the manpower for this, or, we give up for whatever reason, whatever the reason is. But she never gave up. She never gave up on this case. Every intern that came in and touched this case was with us throughout the whole entire thing. So it was clear to me then that my family wasn't just a Bible-sized manila folder, and I'm not exaggerating it. Every hand that touched that case was an individual that genuinely cared about her health and about getting those benefits for us. In fact, I'll bring you back to the last appeal when we waited for the judge and the secretary came in to call us. And Tara, hopefully you remember, they asked, well, where's the parent? And I said, well, I'm right here. And she said, oh, okay. She thought I was part of the team, the attorney and Sarah. And, I was no longer that mom who held her head down low and was ashamed to be asking for this title as disabled for my daughter. I felt very empowered. And I was ready to face this medical expert because I knew this person across from me did not know more than what I knew about my daughter. But I would have never had that power to feel that way if it wasn't for Tara and her team, because they convinced me throughout and taught me throughout the whole entire time what they were doing and how she really was disabled and how she really did meet these requirements. And it was on their end that they weren't getting it. And it was clear that after so long, they just didn't get it. And we won that day, and it was a victory that sometimes feels like a fairy tale to me. But it was because of Tara that, 2 years ago, Ariana became an older sister to a child who also had the same illness. And I took it upon myself to apply after he turned a year old. And I say I put my Tara hat on and the project and mirrored everything that they taught me through those 7 years. And I won that case on my own. And And as a social worker, thank you. Thank you. And as a social worker, I get to pay that forward. So I get to work with other families that are going through the same exact obstacle that I'm going through, and I'm able to show them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It may take nearly a decade, but you just hang in there, and eventually they'll get it on the other end. You just don't give up, because sometimes that's what they're waiting for, is for you to just give up. And I made a promise to my daughter that I would never give up on her. So this is part of her journey. This is part of her needs, and that's why we kept fighting. And I thank you, Tara, for not letting me give up in 2010. So, I stand before you a success story because the project never stopped fighting for me. They allowed me to be a parent, and I didn't have to learn how to be a lawyer on top of learning how to be a doctor for my kids. Instead, I was able to go and get my education to provide more stability financially for my daughter and for the rest of my children. And now, like I mentioned, I'm a licensed social worker. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping us, because we wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for you. We wouldn't have made it this far. So thank you. Thank you. You want to say thank you? Thank you.